Happy you're with us once again. We are joined as always by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a James Beard Award nominee. The group includes Vermilion in Old Town, Tallulah, and Eat Bar in Arlington. Greg, it's always good to see you.
You too.
Looks like we've got something interesting on tap this week.
Absolutely. This is a beer called Geisterzug Gose, and it is from a really amazing brewer. His name is Sebastian Sauer, and he runs two separate kind of brewing concerns in the Cologne region of Germany. One is called Freigeist, which is Freigeist Bierkultur, which is this right here. And then he has another label he releases beers under called The Monarchy. Both breweries operate as sort of gypsy brewers. So he produces his beers at a number of small breweries in and around Cologne in the Rhine River Valley of Germany. And he is very interested in resuscitating kind of forgotten historic styles of German beer, but also putting his own kind of interesting and more modern spin on those styles. So this beer originally was a collaboration beer with another kind of forward-thinking German brewery called the Bayerischer Bahnhof, which is located in Leipzig. But
we've featured them before.
We've talked about them before, absolutely. So this is now coming out just as Freigeist, but that's where the name comes from. Geisterzug means, ghost train, and Freigeist means free ghost or free spirit. Bayerischer Bahnhof is the Bavarian train station in a former train station in Leipzig. So the ghost train Gose is based on the classic Gose style. And Gose is a wheat beer, as you can see here, hazy, crisp, refreshing, slightly sweet. In this case, brewed with coriander for spice, as well as fermented with ale yeast, which gives it a little bit of lemony note, but then also fermented with lactobacillus, which gives it a positive bacteria that gives it a lactic tartness, makes it really refreshing. The last thing about Gose is that it originated over 1,000 years ago in Goslar, which is a city in Lower Saxony, about 100 miles west of Leipzig, which is in Saxony, the former East Germany. And so this is a beer that became popular there because Goslar was this great mining town. And so they were exporting their metals all over Europe, even back in the Middle Ages. And so they eventually started exporting their beer, and it became quite famous, especially in Leipzig nearby. But the thing is that it makes sense. The water in a town that's known for mining is quite hard, saturated with salts.
Right.
And so nowadays, typically when we brew this beer, to mimic that salted water style, we will add salts to the beer. And what this does is not make it taste particularly briny or anything, but it dries the beer out, and as with great cooking, accentuates the flavors existing already in the beer, rather than just making it taste salty.
Okay. Very refreshing smelling.
Yep,
great summer beer, you can tell right away.
Now, there's one other thing I didn't mention about this.
Real nice and mild.
There's another ingredient. So, since it originates 1,000 years ago, this is back in the days when hops were not typically utilized in beer, or as typically utilized in beer. Instead, they would use a whole host of different medicinal herbs and spices that we refer to as Gruit today, which is Old German for wild herb. And part of this tradition survived in the Gose through the usage of coriander, which is now traditional. But for this beer, they wanted to bring in another kind of old school seasoning, and so they use spruce branches. So after they've mashed in the grain and they're kind of transferring the beer and filtering it the first time over to the kettle where they'll boil it, they're kind of filtering it through spruce branches. And that's why it's got this cool kind of mild, herbal, almost woody note in the finish. It's well integrated.
But very mild. None of the things you mentioned are full forward or overpowering at all.
Definitely a beer where the whole is much greater than the sum of its parts.
Wow, that's really good and refreshing. That must go well with a lot of things.
Oh yeah, I mean, so acid and salt balance each other. So think about this goes well with anything salty, from pork belly to any kind of charcuterie.
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips would be amazing. Raw fish would be great. The acidity here makes me think of ceviche, because you got like some kind of acidic cold fish dish. Plus, ceviche typically incorporates cilantro, which will kind of draw out a little bit more of that sprucey herbal note. And then I guess then I think of like Thai food in general being awesome with gose. If you think about the kind of lemon lime qualities of Thai, find that here. We've got the Thai basil, lemongrass working nicely with that coriander and spruce note that we have as well. And even the brinier notes here could work with the fish sauce base for Thai food.
Philip Raskin, as I mentioned, a very loyal Beer of the Week fan, has a question. A couple weeks ago, he says he was here at Church Key. He tried a bottle of Prairie, which he really liked,
awesome.
which we Oklahoma beer, which we featured. In the back, there were all of these kegs wrapped in what looked like plastic bubbles and cardboard. He says he's never seen anything wrapped like this. Are they imported kegs? Why are they wrapped that way?
So these are called key kegs, and they are 99% of them are imported.
Okay.
It's a somewhat new technology, though we've been utilizing it for about four or 5 years now. But it's become more and more prevalent throughout the beer industry. And what it is a different kind of keg. So it is a keg, but he's right. The shell to the keg, to give it some stability, is cardboard. I think it's either hexagonal or octagonal, right? And then on the interior, there are two. It looks like a beer ball, really.
Okay. And
what it is it's a ball inside a ball, and it's plastic. And there's a regular fitting on top that you would hook up with a coupler. Well, what happens to that fitting is in a typical keg, a steel keg that stands up, you're pushing your gas pressure in, and it's displacing the beer out. In this one, you're pushing the gas pressure into the secondary ball, which creates pressure on the interior ball that holds the beer. And so it kind of, the pressure's going around, not touching the beer and squeezing it up. So when it's done, it just looks like almost like a juice box or a Capri Sun that you've like sucked dry. Really cool. So none of the pressure gas, the head pressure hits the beer itself, and they're recyclable, which is great.
Oh.
And the big reason why we're seeing them more and more is because it cuts down on the issues with kegs. Stainless steel kegs are expensive to buy. They take a long time to get back. Even as distributors see in America, if you ship a keg out, it's going to take a while for it to get emptied and then get back to you. So a lot of investment there. And especially even more so when it's coming from overseas. So in this case, they can keg their beer up. It's got a better shelf life. It stays cold, move beer in volume. We can get it here, we can sell it on draft, and then we can dispose of it. So it's gotten really cool. And I should also mention that Key Keg, the company, continues to experiment and make new prototypes. So soon, we won't even see the cardboarded ones anymore. They're moving it to more of a slender keg that has a really thick plastic exterior, so it won't even it'll just be made almost completely of plastic rather than any paper, which is great because kegs that are cardboard can get wet and they can break down. But if it wasn't for the Key Keg technology, we would not have the insane amount of draft available from really cool small producers overseas that we do. When I got involved in the business a decade ago, you could get bottles from all over the place, but seeing kegs was really hard. Now we're seeing kegs even more so in many ways than we're seeing bottles from the smallest of producers, including Freigeist.
All right, excellent question. Philip, thank you so much. If you have a question for Greg, please let us know. The email address you should send it to is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.